2:41 hours, Western Pacific Ocean. Under a moonless sky, the U.S. carrier USS Ronald Reagan and her strike group were sailing 210 nautical miles east of Okinawa. The sea was calm, too calm. Beneath the surface, somewhere in the black water, something moved that shouldn't have been there. The sonar operators aboard USS John Finn, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer screening the carrier, noticed it first. A faint transient, barely a whisper, cut through the low-frequency band. Not biological, not commercial shipping. It was the unmistakable rhythmic pulse of a pump jet propulsion system. Contact. Possible submarine bearing 042, range unknown, the operator reported. Within seconds, the destroyer's AN/SQR-20 towed array began painting a picture. The signature was familiar, too smooth, too refined. The system flagged it automatically. Type 094, a Jin-class ballistic missile submarine. 2:44 hours. Across the task force, encrypted messages flashed through Link 16. The carrier group came to a silent alert. Fighters were prepped for launch. The U.S. Navy had known for months that China's nuclear fleet was operating farther east than ever before. But this was the first time a Jin-class had wandered this close to an American carrier group. Inside the submarine, the Chinese captain of Changzheng 18 believed he was invisible. His orders from the People's Liberation Army Navy were clear. Shadow the U.S. carrier, gather acoustic data, and remain undetected. The mission was part of Operation Silent Shield. Beijing's attempt to prove its subs could operate outside the first island chain without being tracked. He didn't know the Americans were already watching him. 2:49 hours. On board the USS John Finn, Sonar Team 2 refined the contact. Depth 350 feet, speed 4 knots, heading southwest. The signature matched known Chinese patrol patterns out of Hainan. The tactical action officer authorized passive track mode. The destroyer adjusted course by 2 degrees, just enough to tighten the sonar range without alerting the target. At that same moment, in the Combat Information Center aboard the USS Ronald Reagan, Admiral Jacob Hirsch looked at the projected vector. If the submarine maintained her course, she would pass directly beneath the carrier group within 35 minutes. It was a dangerous game, too close for coincidence. Let her come, Hirsch said quietly. Let's see how close they dare. 2:56 hours. Below the waves, the Changzheng 18 crept forward. The crew whispered over intercoms, every sound dampened. The sonar officer adjusted gain controls. He could hear the distant heartbeat of the carrier group. Turbines, propeller harmonics, the faint electronic hum of radar above the surface. They were close, closer than he'd ever been. Then, a faint metallic ping echoed through the hull. Just one, then silence. The Chinese crew froze. That single ping was the Navy's way of saying, "We see you." 3 hours and 2 minutes. Aboard the USS John Finn, the sonar screen lit with confirmation. The echo strength returned clean. Target range 8,200 yards. Target acquired. The destroyer switched to active tracking for 2 seconds, then went dark again. The submarine's captain realized too late that his stealth was broken. His instinct was to dive fast, but that would raise the noise profile and confirm his position. He ordered silent drift instead. Depth increase, 480 feet, 3:07 hours. The carrier's MH-60R Seahawk helicopters were launched, 2 of them, each carrying AN/AQS-22 dipping sonar arrays and Mk-54 torpedoes. They fanned out ahead of the destroyer, deploying sonobuoys in a pattern designed to box the submarine into a kill zone. Meanwhile, the P-8A Poseidon aircraft, orbiting 90 miles north, received coordinates via encrypted uplink. Within minutes, it began dropping additional sonobuoys in a wide-arc net. The Americans weren't just tracking a sub, they were demonstrating that every move could be countered before the Chinese captain even made it. 3:12 hours. Inside Changzheng 18, alarms flickered. The passive array detected multiple sonar pings, closing from above and astern. The captain's face tightened. He realized he was being triangulated. Ballast control. Silent descent to 600 feet, he ordered. The helmsman hesitated.
Sir, depth below keel, 700 only. Do it.
The submarine dropped, scraping through a thermal layer. For a brief moment, her signature blurred on American sensors. The sonar operator aboard the John Finn adjusted his filters, watching the contact fade.
Target lost. Wait, no, regained. Range 9,000 yards.
The tactical officer smiled. He's running blind. 3 18 hours. For the next 6 minutes, the Pacific turned into a silent chessboard. The American destroyers adjusted formation while maintaining EMCON. No interactive radar, no unnecessary transmissions. Above, the Seahawk hovered in darkness, its sonar array glimmering underwater like a silver thread. Then came the transmission from the P-8A Poseidon. Contact confirmed. Submerged vessel attempting lateral escape east.
Depth 600 feet. Velocity 6 knots.
The Admiral's response was short. Mark position. Hold fire unless hostile intent is confirmed. The restraint was deliberate. Washington didn't want a torpedo exchange in international waters, but the message had to be unmistakable. 3:24 hours. The Changzheng-18 leveled out, still blind to the fact that an American Poseidon was tracking every vibration of her hull. Inside, the Chinese sonar officer misinterpreted the fading echoes as safety. He whispered, "We've lost them." He was wrong. At that moment, the USS John Finn launched a single training torpedo, an inert exercise round, meant only to send a message. The weapon splashed into the sea, locked onto the submarine's acoustic signature, and detonated harmlessly 300 yards astern, close enough to rattle every bolt aboard the Chinese vessel. Panic rippled through the crew. Lights flickered. The captain slammed his fist against the console.
Surface! Surface now.
As the submarine broke the waves, its hull glistening in the moonlight, the Americans watched quietly from a distance. No fire, no aggression, just proof of dominance. 3:41 hours, Western Pacific. The Chinese submarine surfaced briefly, exchanged radio identification codes, and turned west toward home waters. The U.S. task force maintained course, never slowing. The message was clear. We see everything beneath these waters. What happened next, however, would push both nations closer to a standoff that intelligence officials later described as the most dangerous moment in the Pacific since 2001. 0346 hours, Western Pacific Ocean. The Changzheng-18 lay surfaced under a gray Pacific sky, her black hull glistening with seawater and diesel fumes. The Chinese captain had ordered a controlled surface, hoping to de-escalate, but in the command centers of both nations, the incident was already spiraling into something much bigger. Aboard the USS Ronald Reagan, the mood was tense. Admiral Hirsch stood silently over the digital tactical map. The submarine surfacing was no accident. It was a signal. Within minutes, the USS Curtis Wilbur and USS Higgins, both Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, were repositioned east and south to create a defensive perimeter. Then came the unexpected transmission. Unidentified vessel. This is Chinese Navy Unit number 412. You are operating in waters under Chinese protection. You are advised to leave the area immediately. Hirsch didn't respond. Instead, he ordered, launch drone overwatch. Keep recording everything, 358 hours. At 20,000 feet, a MQ-4C Triton reconnaissance drone circled silently overhead. Its high-resolution radar mapped the sea surface for 250 miles in every direction. What it found changed everything. 2 more Chinese warships had departed the East China Sea, moving south at 28 knots. Type 052D destroyers, the same class that had shadowed American forces during the Taiwan Strait patrols. Their trajectory placed them on a direct intercept course with the U.S. carrier group. This was no isolated submarine mission. It was a coordinated maneuver. The data feed reached Pacific Command in Hawaii within minutes. By 0407 hours, the situation had been classified as a Level 3 maritime confrontation. 412 hours. Deep below the surface, the Changzheng-18 submerged again, now 15 nautical miles east of her original position. The submarine was recharging and repositioning, her crew now under strict radio silence, but the Americans still had her acoustic signature. Aboard the USS John Finn, sonar displayed her every movement. The towed array followed her descent like a heartbeat monitor. The destroyer systems had already logged the sub's frequency-modulated low-frequency tones, creating an acoustic fingerprint that would allow the Navy to recognize her anywhere in the world. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Ronald Reagan, Admiral Hirsch received a secure message from Washington.
Maintain defensive posture. Do not engage unless fired upon. Continue shadow operation.
He read it twice. They're sending the message that will take the punch first, he muttered. 4:26 hours. The radar operator aboard the USS Higgins called out, multiple radar emissions detected, bearing 289, type 346A phased array signatures. The two Chinese destroyers had arrived. They were sailing in a high-speed formation, side by side, broadcasting radar sweeps, powerful enough to light up half the Pacific. It was an unmistakable show of force. On the flight deck of the Ronald Reagan, two FA-18E Super Hornets, armed with AIM-120AMR, AAMS, were launched to establish a combat air patrol. Their orders were clear: defend, don't provoke. But at 30,000 feet, the pilots could already see what was coming. Radar showed 4 J-15 Chinese fighters closing fast from the west, launched from the Chinese carrier Shandong, 260 nautical miles away. The South China Sea tension had just arrived in the Pacific. 4:33 hours. The sky became a chessboard. The Super Hornets formed a two-tier intercept line, guided by an E-2D Hawkeye, operating 50 miles northeast of the carrier. Every second, the Link 16 network fed targeting and position data across all U.S. assets. The Americans could see everything: the fighters, the destroyers, the submarine, even the faint sonar reflection of a Chinese reconnaissance drone underwater. Down below, the Changzheng 18 received new orders from Beijing: hold position, track, do not engage. But something went wrong. The sub's passive sonar picked up a pattern: 3 sonar buoys closing fast. A second later, the P-8 Poseidon overhead dropped another. The captain of the Chinese submarine panicked. They're surrounding us. Increased depth. Take us to 700 feet. The helmsman protested. Sir, we're at crush depth limit. The captain didn't listen. 4:39 hours. Aboard the USS Higgins, sonar detected cavitation noise. Rapid, uncontrolled. Target accelerating. She's diving beyond safe depth. The tension on the bridge was instant. The Americans weren't going to fire, but if that submarine imploded on its own, the world would still blame them. Within minutes, the noise vanished. No explosion, no detonation, just silence. Possible reactor shutdown, the sonar officer said quietly, or they've gone cold to evade tracking. The fleet held position. Helicopters hovered low, scanning for periscope wakes. Nothing. 4:52 hours. A faint ping returned on the sonar net, range 12,000 yards. The submarine was alive, but the situation had changed. The Chinese destroyers now cut directly across the American formation, within 6 nautical miles of the carrier group. One wrong turn, one misinterpreted signal, and the Pacific would erupt. Aftermath, 0620 hours. By dawn, analysts at the Office of Naval Intelligence labeled the encounter the most aggressive Chinese naval maneuver of 2025. Unverified reports suggested the Changzheng 18 had suffered minor hull stress during its evasive dive and was towed back to Yulin Base. For the Americans, the event was a message, one that carried no missiles, yet spoke louder than any strike. Every move beneath the Pacific is seen, recorded, and remembered. This was not the beginning of a war, but it was a rehearsal for one.